Okay, hello, hello, hello. It looks like things are going. Yeah, just over 5 megabits, no dropped frames. And it looks like it's going to Odyssey and Rumble. It wasn't going to Odyssey last month, so that's one more thing I got working. And no, I'm not on the camera again this month because of weather. Just makes me not that presentable. Hopefully things will turn around, but we'll have to see if anyone is joining in the chat and if anyone is going to join Fun with Facts. I'd mentioned Friday as the day he wanted to do the live stream, and I know Chris had said that he was going to be gone on Wednesday and Thursday. I assume that means that he'd be back on Friday, so we'll have to see if he comes in. But anyway, I'm just going to make up stuff to talk about until then. And there is a story I caught. It's a cops behaving badly story, but there's a couple of twists on it because it's about ICE. And of course, they've been in the news a lot. Yes, they're just as bad, if not worse, as all the other cops. They're thugs. They're all thugs. We know that. But this one I wanted to talk about because it happened in Charlotte, and I don't know if it's making the national news. Because, like, I would have thought that subway killing would have made the national news, but it didn't until conservatives started raising a stink about it on social media. But this was in Charlotte. And so you had CBP agents. So this guy named Martinez, I'm not going to look through and find his first name, but he was a U.S. citizen. He wasn't an immigrant or anything. But he was taking pictures of Border Patrol agents, which you can do if they're in public and they're in the line of duty. You can do that. You can take pictures, you can take video, you can record audio. And what do they usually do? Oh, you're not allowed to do that, which you are. Yes, you are. Courts have said that over and over again. They'll try to tell you you're obstructing or whatever. He was in his car, and so they said that he was impeding their work. He was getting in the way of what they were doing. So he left. So imagine like you're sitting there and you're saying, okay, you're telling me I'm getting in the way? All right, I'll just leave. Well, guess what? They chased him down. They charged him with felony interfering with federal officers. That charge was then enhanced when the government claimed he used his car as a deadly or dangerous weapon, trying to make it sound like he was trying to drive into them or something. So the federal judge dismissed the charges. The judge said, while a vehicle may be used as a deadly weapon, considering the manner in which the defendant used the van and considering the agent's testimony and the video, the court is not persuaded there's probable cause. He still faces, I think, like a misdemeanor charge, but he shouldn't even be facing that. It's your right to record cops in the line of duty. So, yeah, just in case you were wondering how terrible ICE agents are, they're just as bad as the rest, if not more so. Still no one in, huh? Is this thing on? Hello, hello? Maybe I should check Rumble and see if... Yep, nothing so far. From the looks of it, I'm going, so we'll just see who comes in. Or I'll just sit here and talk to myself like an idiot. One or the other. That's okay. I like the sound of my own voice. I do not like the sound of my own voice. Oh, there we are. Political checkmate. How you doing? Yeah, it's just a busy weekend for me, obviously, with Thanksgiving, and tomorrow's when we do the extended family does Thanksgiving up at my mother's house, and so that's a lot of driving and that's a lot of stuff. Have you ever heard of YAL? No, I have not. Young Americans for Liberty. Oh, okay, I think I have heard of them. I don't know much about them though. Back for college, then have to go back for 2 weeks and then have to go back home. Yeah, college is like that, especially around the holidays. Ex Intel CEO Pat Gelsinger says quantum computing will pop the AI bubble. Yeah, calling me skeptical. He's saying GPUs won't survive the decade. By the end of the decade, GPUs will be out and quantum computing will be in. Hard doubt. Jensen Huang has said it would take 2 decades for quantum to go mainstream. Gelsinger thinks 2 years. Yeah, that sounds optimistic. That's even beyond Elon optimistic there, if you ask me. Yes, I've heard of them. I just don't know much about them. They're on like college campuses, aren't they? People like form their own chapters on a campus, one of those organizations. The Supreme Court is about to hear a case that could rewrite internet access. This is on Slate, so this might be hilarious. Out of curiosity, what do you think of a major in philosophy and political science? Not sure what kind of jobs you'll be able to get out of that, but plan on switching to it. I mean, if you can make it work and it's something you're interested in, I'm not going to discourage you. People have certainly got degrees in a lot stranger things. Oh, yeah, they're talking about the Cox case. Yeah, we've covered that. Losing internet to your entire household because, well, they say, imagine losing internet access because someone in your household downloaded pirated music. No, 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 no. Imagine losing internet access because some corporation says someone in your home pirated music. And that's the thing about it. Because none of those little, you know, the scare emails you get, none of those are based on anything. It's just their say so. It's not like a court order or anything. No one's gotten into any forum where they've provided any evidence. They just say you have. We really need it solid that an IP address does not identify someone. Oh, we do have Zen over on Rumble. Okay. More links, video from Red Sheba on how Stalin helped found Israel. That should be interesting. The Tulsa Race Massacre, yes, of 1921. A bunch of other people. President Truman's 1949 Syria coup. Non-compete. And Damon Cassidy claims that American capitalism failed the working class. There is going to be a Lego Star Trek. What does it say that I have more confidence in that than I do in the latest incarnations of Star Trek? Of course, Stargate's coming back. And the nice thing about it is the original writers and creators are on board with it. And it's not even going to be a reboot. It's going to be a continuation. I guess one of those where we pick up however many years, 18 years it's been. And we find out what's been happening in the universe since then. Like they did with Doctor Who. Except that was all new people doing it. Tesla stock up as Elon Musk slams Kafka-esque walls to European FSD approval. I love hearing him explain the silly and ridiculous things that regulators require. And the EU is the worst. They're even worse in California. So they've scheduled FSD ride-alongs in Germany, Italy, and France next month to show regulatory approval. There was one video. It's worth a watch. Someone had sold a Cybertruck, a used Cybertruck, to someone in the Czech Republic, and it had FSD over on it. And he went over there and they had FSD turned on, and not supposed to do that. But they're driving around the streets of Prague. And it was interesting because, as someone who's never been to Prague, there's this weird sign they have. It's a circular sign, blue background, red circle, and a red X in it. You're like, what the heck is that? Is that a stop sign? Especially when it's right before a crosswalk. And apparently the Cybertruck was thinking the same thing and it kept stopping for it. And they said, no, that's not a stop sign. So I looked it up. That was a no parking or standing sign. And the stop sign is the same as our stop signs, the red octagon. Even in English, the word stop in English, not even whatever the Czech word for stop is. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. If Teslas have only been trained in North America, and that's the only stop sign they know is the red octagon, and they were as confused as I was when I saw that sign, a sign that doesn't resemble a red octagon at all, that's abstract thinking, isn't it? Where you can say, wait a minute, I'm in this weird place. I don't know where I am. Everything's new. I don't have any maps. I'm just, driving around aimlessly. And I see this weird sign. Is it a stop sign? Maybe I better stop. That's pretty advanced thinking there. Now, if they will stop popping up ads so I can actually read this. Tesla wants the Dutch regulator RDW by February 26. The RDW immediately countered Tesla's timeline, saying it remains to be seen. Tesla employees show impatience. The push for approval highlights significant internal pressure within Tesla. They've expressed frustration with the testing requirements mandated by Dutch regulators. Yeah, all right. Did Checkmate stop talking or did my chat freeze up? Hang on a second. I always have to ask this question. Oh, where did the chat window go? Oh, no, there. Okay, it updated. Oh, I got a bunch of them at once. Let's see. What would you choose from Doctor Who to return? Not really sure what you're talking about there. Like what character? Well, I would have said Syl, except sadly Nabil Shaban died last month. It's a shame they never brought him back. He was a great villain. Do you believe in free will? Yes, but I'm not familiar with the Markov chain. Let's see, Markov chain. A Markov chain is a stochastic process describing a sequence which the probability of each event depends only on the state attained in the previous event. A countably infinite sequence that gives discrete time Markov chains. Okay, so prediction, prediction based on dependence. I think our brains are a lot more complicated than that. Example is Google predicting your sentence. But I mean, if you give ChatGPT the same prompt twice, it won't give you the same answer twice. That's what they call temperature, because if you run your own models, or I think some models online give you this setting. If you have a temperature setting, you set it all the way down to 0, then that's exactly how it will happen. The same prompt will always give you the same answer no matter what. Because it's always doing absolutely the most probable next word. And it's all deterministic. Increasing the temperature turns that into more of a probability, which is more like how it works in our brains. It's probabilistic, not deterministic. And so if you're wanting something technical and sciencey and everything, you probably want the temperature relatively low, but crank it up for creative writing, or if you're doing like a chatbot and you want a character with personality. I recalled from information theory when we were writing a sentence, it would predict what would follow. Yeah, but the one on Google where like when you're typing it out and it's making the guesses as to what is, that's completely different than how ChatGPT works. And even with ChatGPT, it's different, with how your brain works. Because the way your brain works, it's like continuously running with a whole lifetime of experiences. And with ChatGPT, it's like it's born again every time there's a new prompt. And that's why having a being like Data in Star Trek would be much more conducive to an actual intelligence because it's continuously running. It never gets reset. It's constantly learning, not just, dependent on its training at OpenAI's data centers and have to wait for the next version. If you're constantly training and updating the way your brain is, you've got your own experiences, you've got a thing, a body, something that you can use to move around in the universe, move around the world and manipulate things and learn things directly. Those are all things that are kind of vital for intelligence that ChatGPT lacks. Thoughts on self-driving cars when we will reach level 4? Well, Waymo's been level 4 for a while. Because level 4 is they can operate autonomous, but only in a geofenced area. Now, of course, they do that by taking all the high-resolution maps and things like that, which you could say is a cheat. But that's not how Teslas operate. Teslas operate the way we do, by looking at the road and figuring out what to do next. So they're still level 2, but there's talk, and this is all rumor and speculation, but there's talk that it might be kind of gearing up for level 3, because what some Tesla people have reported when they use FSD, because it's always supposed to be supervised. You're always supposed to be paying attention. They're starting to get this alert that says to pay extra attention to what's coming up. I was like, well, you should be paying that level of attention anyway. So what's that little alert all about? Could it be that it's gearing up and getting all the settings in place for level 3 autonomy? And level 3 autonomy is it's unsupervised until the car tells you to start paying attention or get ready to take over or whatever. When will consumers be able to access level 4? Well, that's the question, isn't it? So, like, do you consider the robo-taxis level 4 because they're geofenced, but they still require that safety monitor in them? Or I think in California it has to be a safety driver. They actually have to be in the driver's seat, not just in the passenger seat with a kill switch. But the cars that are doing that are the same cars that roll off the factory that anyone with the money can go and buy. But those are still level 2. But the idea is that once they get robotaxi going, any Tesla owner should be able to add their car to the fleet. And that might be in geofenced areas, but when they do that, that would be level 4. And a lot of people are speculating that could be next year. But as I was just reading, regulators can be stupid. I mean, having a car where we don't need a driver license required. Oh, that's interesting. See, that would be... Would level 4 do that? Level 4, you would have to stay within your geofence. And to drive outside it, you need a license. Or maybe even then, regulators would still demand a licensed driver. We might have to have level 5 autonomy before we can just say, okay, no driver's license required. More FBI warnings about smartphone scans, all the usual stuff. Oh, now this is interesting. Signal's president said that AI agents are an existential threat to secure messaging. Why would that be? Meredith Whittaker is pushing back. Signal boss told Fortune that the rise of AI agents poses an existential threat. AI agents need access to large amounts of information, including bank details and passwords. That's not going to be in the training data. The training data is all public information, and anyway, it doesn't remember it. I don't feel as good about Signal as I did when Moxie Marlin Spike was in charge of things. I mean, AIs are not going to be able to break encryption. AIs work, they solve all of these complex NP problems by approximating an ideal solution. You know, so your GPS uses an AI to do your route planning. Because, like the traveling salesman problem, that would be just too much for it to do on its own. It would take long after your trip is, past history to be able to calculate the absolute ideal path, let alone, reroute if something happens. So what does an AI do? It gives you one that's close enough. Maybe it's ideal, maybe it's not quite ideal, but it's so close that no one cares. It's not how encryption works. Encryption is all or nothing. There is one solution out of all of those zillions and zillions. 2 to the power of 256 solutions. There is one solution out of all of those, and you either get it right or you get it wrong. So yeah, I don't know. As long as you aren't building the AI into Signal, then there might be a problem. But I would guess that Signal is not going to do that. Oh, geez, the Stranger Things. I'm only 3 episodes into Stranger Things, so no, 2 episodes. So no spoilers, but I think it's primarily Jack Posobiec. But the Christians are all in an uproar about it, as they are about anything that's popular, because they're starved for attention. But they're saying that Will being fed the particles, when he was younger, when he was in the Upside Down, they're saying that's they're saying that that's a child rape scene. And it's like, if you're going to look at anything like that and construe it as something sexual, especially when children's involved, the problem's with you, bucko, not anyone else. So maybe Posobiec is the one we need to be worried about. Let's see what else is going on. Oh, all the fear mongering about Chernobyl. No, there's not going to be any sort of chain reaction. That's not how it works. There's less radiation there, not more. Now, here's another big cybersecurity warning with Windows. Oh, yeah, I think this is Microsoft just pushing to get everyone to 11. We're not going to update Windows 10 anymore. But especially since you're not letting everyone update because they have to have more modern hardware. I just run O&O shut up 10 every so often and make sure all the telemetry's off and do the usual stuff. Oh, the environmental groups are trying to stop the Palisades plant restart because of course they are. Beyond Nuclear, Don't Waste Michigan, and Michigan Safe Energy have filed a lawsuit. They represent 5 residents who live around a mile away from the plant. So what? You're probably safer there than you are anywhere. They claim that operating goes against the Atomic Energy Act. They want them to start from scratch and go through a licensing process all over again as if they were a new plant. Which, those are ridiculous enough with new plants, but the age and condition of the plant would result in accidents, resulting in radiation releases, along with routine releases of radiation. Ugh. Nuclear plants do not release radiation routinely. They suffer irreparable damage to their health and real and personal property. Blah. And with everything they went through trying to get it this far? Holtec still says they hope to have it officially up and running by the end of the year. They're in an operating condition. They just got to get the thing fueled. I'm telling you, the problem with lawfare is just getting worse and worse and worse. All right, haven't seen anything from. Oh, there we go. It's like as soon as I go to check on it, it starts. I don't know. I don't know what causes it to just freeze up like that. Will we achieve level 5 in 3 more years? We might. I think I'm a lot more worried about that being stopped by regulators as opposed to the technology not being ready. Because I think regulators are going to shit their pants over it. I finished the 10th Doctor's run. What Doctor would you personally like to meet? Any of them. I love all of them. As a companion, any of them. Let's go. Let's have adventures through space and time. Heather and I on our rewatch just started the 5th Doctor's run. We're on Castrovalva right now. She always likes the Doctor we're watching at the time and hated when he regenerates. Why did he have to regenerate? Why did he stop the series? Even with the sixth, what's wrong with the 6th Doctor? He was awesome. I love Colin Baker. Very underrated. Yeah, well, that was just in the first. That was right after he regenerated and he was going crazy. He had to settle that. That was a tough regeneration. Of course, that was also a very poorly written episode. Not a good debut for Colin. Trial of a Time Lord was awesome, though. Man, if just so hate. I mean, I hate that Robert Holmes died in the abstract, but to die right then with one episode left from being finished. I don't know. I'm not gonna look at. I was gonna look for information about Tesla and Level 5, but then I saw it was on Electrek, and that's a terrible outlet. Don't listen to them. If they get something right, it's by accident. See, I gotta say a bunch of the regeneration for a choice such as 10 and 5 or even 8 chose not to leave. I'm not sure if you're talking about the actors leaving, but yeah, Colin Baker 6 did not want to leave. 7 didn't. They put the series on hiatus, and 8 was kind of the same thing. That was the 96 movie. A lot of people don't realize that, and that's why they don't think it's very good. They need to understand that was supposed to be the pilot for a continuation of the series, and it wasn't picked up. I'm not sure why you say 10 didn't want to leave. Because yeah, David Tennant chose to leave because Russell T Davies wasn't producing anymore, and he said, "Yeah, I guess it's time." And Stephen Moffat offered him £1 million to stay over, and he was so tempted, but he was like, "No, I'm going to stick to my guns." When he dies by gun with 7 or 2 by execution or 4 falling. Okay, yeah, 2 was executed by the Time Lords and 4 fell. And I think, see, with 10 falling, 10 didn't die from the fall. He died from the radiation burst. And I think what that was Russell T Davies saying, "Hey, Chris Chibnall, you got that wrong. The Doctor would not have died from a fall like that." Because 10 had a far worse fall like that. Oh yeah, the Doctor character too. Well, he never chooses. Because the first one was old age. Second was executed. The third was exposure to the Metebelis crystal. The fourth was the fall. Fifth was spectrotoxemia. Sixth was the Ronnie crashing the TARDIS. Seven didn't actually die by the gunfire. He died by a surgeon not knowing what was going on, because she didn't know about alien biologies. And no one believed the x-rays showing he had 2 hearts. I mean, choice he could have left them in choosing his own life. Oh, you mean like the Doctor choosing to die so that the 10th Doctor choosing to die so that Wilf could stay alive? Yeah, and 5. See, 5 was dumb because he had the 2 vials of the cure. He could have gone ahead and taken one and then just walked back to the TARDIS and given the other one to Perry. But no, he had to do that dramatic, crawl through and then break one of them at the last minute and have the decision to give the second one to Perry. Just go ahead and take one. But I don't think there were others who like made that kind of choice. They could have left the woman in the crashing ship. Yeah, he could have, but he also, I don't know, he didn't know that he was gonna die from the fall. He might have lived. I mean, they're all the result of the Doctor's choices. He could have just chosen to stay in his nice little comfy, cushy life on Gallifrey and not done any of it. Let's see, 11 was old age. Oh, so 12 was killed by the Cybermen, except then Bill resurrected him enough to where he could regenerate. Reflecting, you would think more villains would have caused his death. Well, yeah, and 14 was killed by the toy maker. Well, not killed because he bi-generated, but well, yeah, you could say 3 was killed by the giant spiders. 3 was killed by the Metabila spiders. And 4 was killed by the Master. Because he tried to hold on but couldn't fall. But remember, the Master was the one who turned the radio telescope to make him fall to begin with. Thoughts on bi-generation? Why not? Why couldn't that be a thing? What does happen to an old Doctor when he regenerates into a new one? Because we know that in the Doctor Who the Doctor Who universe that diverging timelines happen. So that was basically a diverging timeline that stayed in this timeline. One where he regenerated and one where he didn't, and that was the toy maker's influence. I mean, the whole regeneration just becomes one person. Not sure what you're saying there. It's all one person. It's all the Doctor. And again, 6's death was caused by the Ronnie. So that was another villain. Watching them both, there's difference such as having a finale. Well, it kind of depended. I mean, the second Doctor's finale was pretty epic. A 10-part war covering space and time. Oh, such as the Master leaving hints. Well, they did that in Logopolis because they had been setting that up with the throughout the E-space and entropy timelines there. And the Watcher. And they set it up with Planet of the Spiders as well with Choji. That wasn't the Doctor, that was Campo, but still. It was Chekhov's regeneration. Why does the Watcher only exist for Tom? Who says it does? He was just the only one who could see the Watcher due to the entropy released by the impending death of Legopolis. But we know thanks to Choji that it happens with other Time Lords as well. You agree that 7 is the most dangerous? They're all dangerous when they want to be. 7 was like on a mission, though. And 10 is a lot of the same way, that whole no second chances thing. A lot of that came from 7. He got a lot of his personality from 7. There's a lot of dangling threads a good author could build on, but you need a showrunner interested in such things. Well, that's exactly what Chibnall did, and everyone complained about it. He picked up and ran with what was said in the Third Doctor's first season. He picked up and ran with Brain of Morbius. He picked up and ran with the Cartmel Master Plan. Oh, yeah, the Doctor was scarier than the Flood in that episode. That's why the Doctor needs a companion. I think 7 without Ace would have been universe ending. Of course, then you have Capaldi and Clara. Capaldi's Doctor wouldn't have been anywhere near as dangerous as he was without his friendship with Clara and losing her. You know why it was never brought back? I guess just because the writers never wanted to go that way, but I think it was mostly just establishing this is why the Doctor needs a companion. And it's just like Amy said to 11, this is why you shouldn't travel alone. Because of the way he gets when he's alone for too long. He needs a companion, even if it's a hollowed out cyberhead. Reminded of Perry with Colin Baker, yeah. Yeah, but I mean, even by Vengeance on Varos, she had turned him around quite a bit. And then you saw how their friendship was at the start of the next season, how much it had progressed there. They were BFFs at that point. The Doctor knows everything, and he can be the ultimate nihilist. Yeah, that's why he needs a companion. Ninth Doctor Daleks are extremely difficult to kill. Well, they had been progressing basically ever since Destiny of the Daleks, when they finally got Davros to help them break through their trap. Because they thought that being the supreme beings, that meant they were perfect, which meant they couldn't change anything about themselves, because as soon as they changed something about themselves, they would be imperfect. And keep in mind all the years that stuff was actually happening, even though it wasn't on the air, culminating in the Time War. I mean, here's the thought: if the Doctor had never started traveling and had never, visited Skaro in his second adventure, would the Daleks have been a problem at all? Or were they only a problem because the Doctor started fighting them and stopping them? Did you know that it was the cost of the Cybermen change design? I mean, I could believe that. Although I miss their original voices, I thought that was very interesting for a mechanical foe. Because everyone else was doing the monotone. And then what did you what did you have left? The very next episode they were back. You had the monotone, which was Peter Hawkins speaking. Oh God, what are those things called? Like when people have their trachea removed and they can't talk, and they hold the thing against their neck that vibrates the trachea, and it makes them talk like this. And it's a lot harder to understand. The sort of responsibility the other Time Lords couldn't deal with. Yeah, there was probably a certain amount of wisdom there. You can help people, but make things even worse down the road. Which villain would you not want? I don't want to meet any of them. They're villains. In Memphis, people fear Elon Musk's supercomputer is making them ill. Oh my God. Okay, I have to read this. The Colossus is blamed for worsening air pollution in a historic black community. But they don't produce air pollution. When completed, Colossus will require 1.1 gigawatts of power. Okay, so build another nuclear. Because that's about what they do. Full-size nuclear reactor does about that much. Build an AP-1000. Imagined health conditions are easy to fall for. Yeah, and easy for lawyers to exploit, too. Residents believe the fumes from Colossus have polluted a suburb. How does a data center produce fumes? The people who live around here are black, so they think they can do what they want. Why did Musk pick this area down here to put that computer thing that ain't nobody down here need? Okay, I'm still looking for a reason why it would be emitting fumes. It's not my fault. I can sue the rich guy and be set for life. Exactly, Pence. The rhinos from Smith and Jones. Well, they're just bureaucrats. You just need the shadow proclamation on hand to quote to them the right subsection. When the Times approached XAI for comment, Musk's company gave a 3-word response: legacy media lies. There you go. Stunt Car Racer? I don't think I ever played that one. People who think they're being disturbed by the sound of wind farms, yeah. I never use Grok and never will, and to people who do, I remind them that's my air. There's a cost to using this technology. Anytime I've used ChatGPT, I've thought about the environmental effect. I've got videos on this. The environmental effect is minuscule. The amount of power it makes is minuscule. It's a blip. You want to solve our power and environmental problems by getting rid of it? You're bailing out the Titanic with a thimble. What do you think about Trump being okay about being called a fascist? Yeah, the problem, yeah, they've made that a meaningless slur. And so those of us who actually know what it means, who are dealing with actual fascists, and who are trying to point out that what they are doing is literal fascism, that's what they do. Everyone says fascism. Yeah, but some people are correct. In fact, if you're one of those who believes in 4D chess, you could say maybe that was the idea. The whole idea was to discredit the word fascist, so that whenever anyone points out their fascism, they get to write it off. And I still have no idea how data centers are supposed to emit fumes. Same belittling of the term racist, exactly. How's your movie business? I tell you, it was tough enough on indies before COVID. COVID basically killed it. Trying to get anything done as an indie producer these days, especially with my disability getting worse. If I can get them to let me get my pain under control, that's severely limiting what kind of shooting I can do. Responsive AI data centers consuming so much water for cool down. Yeah, but the emissions are just water vapor. It's not water vapor plus bad AI mojo. Oh, Gizmodo. All the bad things that can happen when you generate a Sora video. It can create videos that run the gamut of quality from banal to profoundly satanic. Yeah. Thanks for erasing all of my doubts. Now I know your article's dumb. Oh, yeah, complaining about the electricity they use. No, 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 it uses so much energy. Energy is bad. How do you have a passion to learn about technology and science? I don't know. It's just always kind of been there. Just the way I am, I guess. I kept trying to use Feynman method, but with things like math, if you miss a step, things go bad. Yeah, that's true. AI can help with that. Just remember, it hallucinates. You gotta always check it. Like the Republican Kimberly Coates, aka the moron behind our equally dumb chemtrail band. Yeah. Oh, I need to check Rumble. I need to see what Zen's been saying. Chats have been active. Santaran experiment, that wasn't a bad little two-parter. It was just surrounded by better episodes, so it kind of suffered. Simon Whistler, yeah, I'm not. Don't trust him too much. He gets a lot of stuff wrong. Fascism is socialism mixed with mercantilism, exactly. Leftists so focus on mass murder and ultranationalism, but ignore and evade the shit economies and socialism, exactly. FDR was one of Mussolini's many admirers, ditto for the Kennedys. Speaking of water vapor, that and carbon dioxide are what contrails are. Something that moronic chemtrail believers never learn. Yep. They're just clouds. That's what they are. They are clouds. Nothing on Odyssey. Looks like we're still going on Odyssey. That's a good sign. It completely failed last time, but I'm concerned with how search engines will become worthless as delusions fill the internet. Listen, that is nothing new, my friend. Take it from someone who's been on the internet since the beginning. That's always been the case. This is nothing new. Entrepreneurship technology startup, and have that difficult but discovered that man CEO did not do technical skills like Pinterest CEO or Airbnb CEO. I'm not sure what you're talking about there. What the effects of the AI bubble pop will be, I don't imagine it'll be that much difference than when the dot-com bubble popped. Probably won't even be that bad. Remember, fundamentally, this is a problem of monetary policy, and yeah, we're going to have inflation, especially if Trump sends out those $2,000 checks. It'll be just like Biden inflation, and it'll just be the same cause. But AI is a useful service, just like the internet's a useful service. The big thing I'm worried about with AI is if government captures it with regulation. Because the more we have the small projects out there, the better. Like, what's it called? LTX2? That amazing one that was just done by like a 50-person team? Inflation to the point of absurdity? Maybe. I'm not sure it'll be as bad as Biden inflation because we didn't have all the COVID crap happening, but thoughts on vibe coding? I mean, it's worked for me. You just have to know how to work it. My experience, and don't take this as anything other than my experience, is just what I've experienced. But number one, use Claude. It seems to be the best at that. And two, don't start right off the bat writing code. Stop and think yourself about what actually you wanted to do. Come up with the steps involved and the requirements and what the input's going to be like and what you want the output to be like, and do a good write-up on that. And give that to Claude and tell it not to write any code yet, but do some back and forth first, but not to write any code until you tell it. And then just have it review what you did and think through and make suggestions, go back and forth. Then you hit the button and do code. And then you'll get a bunch of really nice code that almost certainly won't work, but at least you can debug it from there. Like, I could never get a good filter or a good anything that would like show you a waveform the way I've been doing it lately with the repost, where I just post like one segment from the podcast because I want to include it in a playlist or whatever, that waveform that goes by. I could not find anything that was anywhere approaching that level of quality. I used Claude and vibe coded it in an hour. That's all. That's a Python script that I made with Claude. I saw a post from Noah Smith pointing out that with tariffs, is that negative effect is canceled out by a different effect? I don't know. I don't think it cancels it out. It might be less bad than some of the other methods, but it's still bad. Treat the AI as a junior programmer. Yeah. Don't trust the LLM with code. Yeah, don't trust it with anything. It's not trustworthy. It'll do crap. But if you work with it and you know how to work with it, it's all about the prompt engineering. Yeah, another one I did was for the regular podcast. You know, I have that red bar going across the top now to let people know, you know, how far along they are in a segment and about how much they have left to go. Yep, there was no good progress bar filter anywhere that I could find. So, Claude again. It's very customizable. It'll basically only work with my podcast, but it works. Agentic system will still have those issues. Oh, always. Human beings have those issues. I don't know why people are expecting AI to be any different. Okay, I don't know how they explain anyone to read these stories with all their pop-ups. Thoughts on narrative economics? Robert Schiller. I don't know who that is. You're asking about all the stuff I don't know about, Checkmate. Have a good evening. Happy turkey leftovers. YouTube hints. A Nobel Prize. Yeah, I'm in keeping up with that. I do love picking your mind. Oh, pick away. That's why I'm here. Well over an hour in and no one else is joining, so we'll just keep talking, I guess. When is the next Lord Killian? I was working on a script earlier today. I had been working on one that's going to take quite a while to do. So I found another video that's a little bit, it's pretty much written now. I won't be able to do it tomorrow because of Turkey Day with the extended family, so I'll probably record it on Sunday. Will they ever release the Epstein files? Who knows at this point? What video is it about? It's another one. Well, you know, because people say, hey, you atheists, why do you Why do you always pick on Christians? Why do you never pick on Muslims? I found a Muslim. Guess what? Just as dumb. I've done a few Muslims, though. So it's about Muslim. Well, it's kind of a combination question for atheist video along with the real reason people are atheists, not because of rationality, but yeah, that sort of thing. On the one hand, it's fairly run of the mill, but on the other hand, it's silliness all on its own. So I just had to. Yeah, I don't think any of these news people know what they're talking about on any of these stories. Let me go back to Zen for a minute. Paul Winchell, original voice of Tigger, the Owl, and Gargamel. I'm not sure what you want me to say. He was a great voice artist. For those who thought Donald Trump was going to end the surveillance state, you're wrong, and embarrassingly so. It's like the Cato Institute, Trump Treasury expands financial surveillance. Yep. An anti-anime law? Well, Zen's giving me plenty to read as usual. Greg Abbott and Ken Paxton have proven they're not fit for any office. Yeah, but who is? Hate to break it to you, but they're basically all that way. Those guys are actually fairly run of the mill as far as political thugs go. Thoughts on the reliability of the gospel? Yeah, they're not. I mean, they're anonymous texts written centuries later. How reliable can you expect them to be? Richard Balcom points out that names show that the Gospels have a great probability of the names of the region. Well, that's not a difficult thing, though. But when they get basic stuff wrong, like Pontius Pilate, he was a prefect, and what did they say he was? I forget what the Gospels say. Well, they give him the wrong position. And I mean, the Gospel authors didn't even really understand the Greek Septuagint, let alone the original Hebrew texts. Well, not original, but the Hebrew texts of the Old Testament that it was based on, because they were doing mistranslations and misconfigurations all over the place. There was a comparison of fake gospel and other historical fiction stories and found so little correlation. I'm not sure what you mean. But yeah, they misread and misattributed the Old Testament all over the place. Okay, so a follow up paper found that they didn't quite match up so well after all. Yeah. But I mean, the time sequence they're working in, it's like, oh, people today know the names of Thomas Jefferson and George Washington. Yeah, okay. So what? It's on basically that time span. In fact, we don't make mistakes like saying that George Washington was prime minister instead of president, which is basically the kind of things they did. Yeah, Falcon 9 just did its 30th mission and the 15th transporter rideshare. I tell you, the rideshare missions are what's revolutionary. People can't afford space travel, but people might be able to afford a piece of space travel, so you just do a whole bunch of missions at once for a whole bunch of different people. It's like not confusing the names of New York or Alabama without Google or name databases. So many ads. I hope you're monetized. I am. Are they doing their show and ad every 20 seconds? It's gotten ridiculous. It has gotten absolutely ridiculous on YouTube with the ads. I never really thought I'd miss, network television where they'd at least let 7 to 10 minutes go by before showing you 3 to 4 minutes of ads. I think proportionally, YouTube might be showing you like more ads per, minute of content. The Sleeping Beauty paradox. Haven't heard of that one. A thought experiment in decision theory and epistemology. How an ideally rational agent should update her beliefs when faced with self locating information and imperfect recall. Okay, football game between two sporting teams. One has 80%, the other 20. You'll be wakened once if the 80% win, but go back to sleep with no memory. I think you're explaining it better than Wikipedia. You would awaken constantly. If it was 20%, it shows you should choose the 20% probability. So you never remember the 80% winning, you only remember the 20% winning. So how does that show you should choose the 20% probability? Because that's the only outcome you would ever know? If you have no memory of being waken up and only woken up constantly if it was 20% instead of one time with 80. Okay, just because you'd get more chances to play even though you don't remember it. But do you know that's the case when you're put to sleep? Are you told what's going to happen? Or if all of you know is that you're just going to sleep and then you're waking up and then you're asked the question? Because if that's the case, you don't really have any information to go on. My favorite paradox, I always like Simpson's paradox. You know how, like at Berkeley, there were more admissions of males than females overall, even though when they went looking through the departments for which one's the problem, which one is not admitting females, they were all admitting more females. But it was just because of the departments the females applied to and the fact that the departments were different sizes. See, that always gets you because the heuristic in your brain is always to kind of imagine that the groups are the same size, but when they're different sizes, that can throw things off. So Sleeping Beauty knows the game, just doesn't know the chances. She knows the odds, but is unaware of opportunities. But if she knows that she'll be awakened each time if the long shot wins, but only once if the favored one wins, so you just keep hitting the long shot. And you'll eventually come out ahead. Yeah, that makes sense. Given enough chances to play, I guess with 80-20, for every 4 times the favored team wins, the long shot wins once. So as soon as you play the game 5 times, then you start to come out ahead. Because winning 4 times would be breaking even. That's assuming you're not actually given odds. If you got a bookie that's giving you 4-1 odds, then then you're definitely coming ahead with the long shot. Because then each time you win, you're ahead. Religion began when the first scoundrel met the first fool. I've always liked the one that goes, man will never be free until the last politician is strangled to death with the entrails of the last priest. Do you say math is universally applicable? I mean, math is, but any given application of math might not be. Therein lies the problem. It's all about the application. It's like we were talking about with Signal before. You can have encryption that is provably secure, but if you've got something running in your app that's going to leak it out, that's not going to matter much, is it? Oh, yeah, the whole you can't have gone without logic thing. Yeah, I've done that before. Or you can't have logic without God, rather. They have absolutely nothing to back that up. So I don't know what there is to respond to begin with. It's just an assertion, but Bayesian versus frequentist Bayesian every time. Why? It's more reliable. Look at how much papers have to do to try and account for all the problems with the frequentist approach that you wouldn't have to do with the Bayesian. I still like this one XKCD. Oh, I forget exactly how it was set up, but it was like, maybe the sun has gone out, maybe it hasn't. It's night, so we can't tell until the Earth rotates around. But he had it set up to where the frequentist approach, when the frequentist went through all of these things and concluded that there was, so much of a chance that the sun went out, p less than 0.05. And the other guy, the Bayesian guy, said, bet you $1 it hasn't. See, what the Bayesian approach does is it's not only setting up the prior probability, which is everything we've learned up to that point about it. You're actually looking at two different things with the likelihood ratio, whereas the frequentist approach only looks at one. So the numerator of the likelihood ratio is what is the probability that we would see this if the hypothesis were true, and the denominator is what is the likelihood we would see this result if the hypothesis were false. So if the likelihood is 1, we don't know anything one way or the other. If the likelihood ratio is greater than 1, it means that we're more sure of the hypothesis than we were before. And if it's less than 1, then we're less sure of the hypothesis than we were before. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, here we are, 1132, frequentist versus Bayesians. Did the sun just explode? It's night, so we're not sure. This neutrino detector measures whether the sun has gone nova. Then it rolls 2 dice. If they both come up 6, it lies to us. Otherwise, it tells the truth. Let's try. Detector, has the sun gone nova? Sound of rolling dice. Yes. And of course, they don't see the dice. Frequentist. The probability of this result happening by chance is 1 over 36. That is equal to 0.027. Since p is less than 0.05, I conclude the sun has exploded. Bayesian. Bet you $50 it hasn't. Now let's see. How do you see alt text on a phone? Where's the alt? Okay, the alt text. Detector, what would the Bayesian statistician say if I asked him whether the roll, I am a neutrino, not a labyrinth card. Seriously, did your brain just fall out? Roll, yes. Yeah, so the frequentist approach isn't really looking at the fact that it's really incredibly freaking unlikely that the sun exploded. So you have that prior, and you also have the proper statistical distribution of whether the dice have made the detector lie to you or not. In other words, if it's giving you a false positive. And this is the whole thing about, the one that so many oncologists got wrong, which is like you have a patient and you give them a test, and I think like the false positive rate is 10%, false negative rate is 8% or whatever. They test positive, what's the chance they got cancer? And they pretty much all get it wrong. Because if you actually go through the Bayesian process, you find out it's still, despite the fact that it's only a 10% false positive rate, it's still less of a 10% chance that you actually have cancer. Because so few people in the world have cancer. Most people don't. And unless you account for that prior, and then properly account for the full likelihood ratio, then you can be led to an absurd conclusion. Let's see. Did the chat peter out on me or did I just get stuck? Let me reload. Okay. Chat just petered out. Well, we got about 8 minutes left. You got me till then, so anything else you want to hear me wax philosophic about? Can infinity be real physically? Well, there are lots of the laws of physics where these infinities show up. And of course, in our theories of physics, we try to renormalize them, but that's really just to make the math work. The Hilbert Hotel proving that infinity can't physically be real. Well, that's not really what it says. It's about a paradox of infinity where you can have a hotel with an infinite number of rooms and all the rooms are full, but then you get an infinite number of guests. You can accommodate the infinite number of guests by putting the existing guests in the even numbered rooms, the new ones in the odd numbered rooms, and you can fit everyone. Oh yeah, I haven't been looking at Rumble, have I? Sorry, I was too occupied with... Oh yeah, Tiny Tim. Love Tiny Tim. Another thing the military fails at, fiscal responsibility. Oh God, they are the worst. The Pentagon loses so much money. Compare that to mercenary groups who have every reason to stay in the black. Yeah, and the same with the militias that we had at the start of the country. They're doing what Tex Avery did in 1942 with All This and Rabbit Stew, a.k.a. Bugs Bunny dealing with Black Elmer Fudd. Trump and MAGA unwittingly got Mamdani elected to mayor. Yeah, probably. Who do you think is worse? Any of those guys? I don't know. They're all pretty bad. It's hard to quantify. They're just all bad. Laws aren't spearheaded by out-of-touch church ladies, but also by foolish, insolent, arrogant leftist twits. Thoughts on quantum economics? Just by the name alone, I'm calling BS. What would quantum economics even be? Econophysics. Let's see. Quantum economics is an emerging paradigm. Treats the economy as a quantum social system characterized by uncertainty, entanglement, and probabilistic behavior rather than deterministic equilibrium. The failure of mainstream economic to explain to, or predict the financial crisis, but there were plenty that did that. Stems from their reliance on classical physics inspired assumptions. You don't need that. Just go with the schools of economics that actually did predict it. Using advanced physics for calculation. Look, that kind of assumption that you could somehow make physics equations and other, algebraic relationships apply to economics, that's what caused the problem to begin with. Because it just doesn't work that way. Mainstream economics didn't predict it because mainstream economics is bullshit that tries to tell politicians what they want to hear and is useful for them to justify what they want to do. But human beings are not variables in equations, nor are they random actors. They are rational actors in the Misesian sense of the word. That's how you need to look at economics. That's why praxeology just keeps working. All right, a minute left. Hey, well, if there's nothing else, then I guess that will do this for another month. Thank you for the talk. It was fun. Well, thank you, Checkmate, for giving me plenty to talk about. Mr. No, wish I had something, but I don't. That's cool. You watched. I'm thankful for that. Enjoy your late Thanksgiving. Hey, you too. Have a good weekend, everyone. If you celebrate Thanksgiving, eat turkey. If you don't, eat turkey anyway. It's delicious. Thank you so very much. Until next time, stay strong